Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever stopped to think about those tiny, microscopic milliseconds between hitting send on a money transfer and when it actually settles? It feels instant to us, right? But under the hood of global finance, this massive, highly orchestrated operation just kicked into gear. So today, we're taking a journey right into that hidden world.
We live in an era of just incredible, unprecedented speed. Modern finance moves value across the globe literally in the blink of an eye. But what's actually happening in the milliseconds after you hit send? While the money seems to just magically fly through the air, there's actually a highly complex, totally invisible checkpoint system working at lightning speed. And its sole purpose? To keep that money completely out of the hands of bad actors. Let's look at how this whole thing operates.
Section 1. The Invisible Financial Shield.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're moving from that everyday action of sending money to the incredibly strict, highly regulated controls working tirelessly behind the scenes. At its core, payment screening is simply reviewing payment messages and transaction data before or during processing. But hey, don't let that dry definition fool you. Think of this as the ultimate frontline defense against financial crime. It's the literal gatekeeper deciding, in real time, if a payment is safe and lawful before the money actually moves an inch.
And we need to be really clear here. This isn't just some optional best practice that banks do to be polite. Regulatory bodies like OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, explicitly mandate these controls. They require the blocking or prohibiting of transactions involving targeted persons, countries, or even entire sectors. It's a strict legal requirement, which is exactly why payment screening sits dead center of sanctions control frameworks globally.
Section 2. Why transparency matters most. To really grasp this, we've got to shift our focus to the actual data inside the payment message itself. Because, you see, professional screening is way more complex than just running a simple name check. Think about the payment chain. First, it starts with the originator. That's the person or business sending the funds. Then it travels through intermediaries. Those are the banks in the middle routing the cash. And finally, it reaches the beneficiary. A mature screening framework has to look at all these parties. It examines the banks, the jurisdictions, the narratives, and the payment attributes across this entire chain. It's all about truly understanding the complete context behind a transfer.
This crucial point is summed up perfectly by the Wolfsburg Payment Transparency Standards, which state, payment transparency is necessary not only for sanction screening, but also for transaction monitoring. So why does that matter to us? Because screening quality depends entirely on the data. If the data at any point in that chain we just talked about is truncated, missing, inconsistent, or just poorly structured, well, the invisible shield breaks down. A financial firm might completely miss a true sanctions hit simply because they couldn't see the full picture.
Section 3. The real-time speed trap.
Now, we have to introduce the modern complication to this whole process. The payment rails of the world are moving faster than ever before, and that radically shrinks the window available for catching financial crime. What's really interesting here is the stark contrast between two very different environments. Traditional payments historically allowed time for manual intervention and human review. If something looked off, there was a buffer to figure it out. But instant payments? They completely changed the game. Faster payment rails mean you need incredibly strong front-loaded screening, impeccable data quality, and rapid escalation logic. In fact, OFAC guidance specifically notes that instant systems require a strict risk-based approach simply because of their sheer, uncompromising immediacy.
To actually survive in that crazy high-speed environment, a professionally mature screening framework relies on a few key elements working together flawlessly. You absolutely need accurate and current sanctions data, appropriate matching logic, really clear rules for handling potential matches, timely escalation, and seamless integration with payment operations. And according to OFAC's framework for compliance commitments, this program also has to be tailored to reflect a firm's unique products, its customers, and its transaction volumes.
Section 4. The false positive problem. Even with the absolute best systems in place, there is a massive operational hurdle. Honestly, the biggest headache banks face in this microscopic time frame. In reality, the vast majority of alerts generated are just false positives, while true sanctions hits make up a tiny, almost microscopic fraction. Everyday names or locations often simply resemble sanctioned parties, and this creates an unavoidable avalanche of noise that can completely overwhelm analysts and severely delay those split-second decisions.
So how in the world do financial institutions survive all this constant noise? Well, the solution lies in highly specific tuning, quality assurance, and review processes. Firms have to constantly fine-tune their algorithms to improve precision. They have to intelligently filter out the false alarms without ever weakening their actual sanctions compliance. It is an incredibly delicate, high-stakes balancing act.
Section 5. The ultimate control point.
This is really where screening integrates into the much bigger, holistic picture of global financial safety. It's so important to understand that even if a payment sails right through and doesn't trigger a sanctions match, it's not necessarily in the clear. There are suspicious indicators well beyond sanctions, things like unusual routing, inconsistent counterparties, rapid pass-through behavior, or unexplained high-risk geography exposure. Basically, payment screening cannot be treated as just some standalone filter isolated from anti-money laundering and fraud functions. They're all deeply connected parts of the exact same shield.
Which brings us to our core takeaway for this explainer. Payment screening is exactly where payments operations and financial crime prevention meet. It's the vital intersection that decides if a payment can proceed lawfully. Not only does it protect against breaches, but it also strengthens the detection of suspicious fund movement before the value is ever actually transferred to a bad actor.
So, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. Next time you send money instantly, will you think about the invisible checkpoints protecting your transfer? It's pretty amazing to realize that in the exact time it takes for your screen to load that confirmation, a massive, global, highly tuned security apparatus just verified your transaction. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep your curiosity sharp.